You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
It's 11 o'clock at night. It's dark. You're sitting in front of the mirror getting ready for bed. There's nobody else in the house. You see something move in the corner of your eye. You glance to your right, but you don't see anything. Another minute goes by, and you think you see movement again. So you slowly turn to your left, but again, the room is empty. You turn back around, and staring you face to face in the mirror is a cat. You jump back because you don't have a cat, and there's no cat in the room. But there he is, staring at you in the mirror. Welcome to Paranormal Pets, where you can always expect the unexpected. Each week, we'll discuss all aspects of weird or spiritual animal encounters, ghosts, totems, psychic animals, animal souls, animal angels, and animals in religion, with a little cryptozoology thrown in. Now, step into the supernatural world of pets with your Paranormal Pets ghostly host, our ghost host.
Hello, and welcome to Paranormal Pets at PetLifeRadio.com. My name is Brandy Stark, and I'm your hostess this week. Dusty Rainbolt and I will be co-hostessing the show. I'm very excited for this opportunity, and I thank her very, very much for thinking of me. Dusty is going to do a lot of the segments on cats and special segments. I've been looking around in the paranormal community, and I have found a few new ideas. This week, I'm very excited because our guest is Laurie Champion of Pinellas Pasco Paranormal, and she is just a fantastic woman who has been dealing with both paranormal investigation, which is also a specialty of mine as a ghost hunter, and also cryptozoology, which is something I personally have always had an interest in but have never fully investigated. So she is a multi-talented woman and just a fantastic source of knowledge. So for my first week, I'm very excited to have her on. We're going to go ahead and do a brief commercial, and when we get back, we're going to introduce Miss Champion.
Now, time for something really scary. A word from our sponsors. Paranormal Pets will reappear before you can say Bigfoot. Don't run away.
Hey, ready to take a walk? Not just you, but the whole family. It's the 2009 Whisker Walk, Sunday, June 7th from 11 to 3 at the Lancaster Fairground in Lancaster, Massachusetts. Pet owners and animal lovers walk to lend a paw to benefit the animal shelters and pet charities they love. Come see exhibits, demonstrations, educational programs, special attractions, product giveaways, entertainment, auctions, raffles, food, fun, and things for adults and kids to see, do, and buy, both human and pet related. Whisker Walk 2009, a fun day for everyone. For more information, log on to whiskerwalk.org.
Thinking about buying a monkey? How about a ferret or a skunk? Then check out the show that will answer the burning questions: where do you get them? What do you feed them? How do you take care of them? And most of all, what were you thinking? With exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart. Every week on demand from PetLifeRadio.com. Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Did you hear that? Our commercials have mysteriously disappeared. Paranormal Pets is back with our haunted host, our ghost host.
Welcome back. And my name again is Brandy Stark, and this is Paranormal Pets at PetLifeRadio.com. I am very excited this week to introduce Laurie Champion, the director of Pinellas Pasco Paranormal. Good morning, Laurie. How are you doing?
How are you?
Oh, we're doing. I am just so thrilled that you're here with us today, and I'm just delighted that you are my first guest. I can't tell you how excited I am.
Well, so am I.
That's great. Well, I know that you actually have, we're actually doing 2 interviews with you, and the first one for today is on cryptozoology, and that's something that I've studied on and off in the past. and I know that you have studied it quite a bit. I know that in your past, you're from New Jersey, and that you actually are interested and involved in hostile haunts because as a child you had that experience. But I know that you got involved in cryptozoology, and I'm rather curious to know, first of all, what is cryptozoology, and then how did you get into it?
That's actually very funny. It's a funny story. A crypto creature, cryptozoology, is a creature that is previously unknown, whose existence has not been proven yet. Usually it's been cited and talked about by many people in different regions, sometimes for years, sometimes for centuries. The Bigfoot is a crypto. The lake monsters around the world are cryptos, as is the chupacabra. There are quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What's really funny is I am from New Jersey, okay? And in New Jersey, when I was a kid, we're going back a long time ago, there wasn't really much, you didn't hear much about Bigfoot. Everybody was concerned with the Jersey Devil, which to this day I really still have trouble buying into. So Bigfoot was not really a part of my world. I was a ghost person. That was my interest. That's why I spent a lot of my time investigating and studying. So Bigfoot was kind of even almost unknown to me until I moved to Florida. And when I moved to Florida, of course, being, with my luck, I moved to this one area where there was something very strange going on. And, I'd experienced a few things, I'd heard things, I've seen things, so I started talking to some of the people in the neighborhood. And what was funny was my daughter, who was very small at the time, she woke me up. We'd only been living here for a week. And she woke me up and she said, Mommy, she was all hysterical. I said, what's wrong? She said, there was a gorilla in my window. And I laughed. I said, okay, it was a bad dream, everything's good, go back to sleep. Well, she met a little girl the next day, and she wanted to go play at her house. So, of course, I, being the mom, I had to go down there and meet the parents, and find out who they were and if they were okay. I got to talking to the little girl's mother, and it came up in conversation. She said, how are you settling in? And I told her what had happened. She looked at me, she got a little serious, and she said to me, don't be too hard on her. I believe her. I said, what? And then she went on to tell me that all of her children experienced the same thing, that her husband had chased this thing with a rifle through the yard, and it went over her back fence back into the woods. So I was thinking, okay, this is a really weird neighborhood. These people are strange. I still wasn't buying into this. But you know what? After a while, I'd seen more, I'd heard more, and one night a friend of mine and I were out walking, and we had been hiking through the woods, and we were on our way back, and we heard something following us. We heard the crunching and the crashing, the footsteps. We got to a clearing, we turned around, and for the first time in my life, I saw something that I never dreamed in a million years was real, okay? And I got a real good look. We stood there with our mouth open. He stood there just breathing and weaving back and forth trying to be a tree. And I will never forget that for as long as I live. Well, push comes to shove, time goes by, and a man comes to town who is at the library, and he's advertising for people who have had Bigfoot sightings in Florida. So, I'm a paranormal investigator. The curiosity's got the best of me. So I go to see this guy. I want to see what he has to say. I get to talking to him, and I tell him what happened. And it was really funny because I didn't even tell him where I lived. He pulled out a map and said, let me tell you where you live. And he pointed out my area. And
Wow.
he says, got to talking, and I talked about paranormal things. He's also a paranormal investigator. He worked with the government. He's worked with a lot of people on MUFON. And he said, I would really like to, you are the perfect person I need. I want you to work with me on this. You know a lot about it. Because by then I learned a lot about that creature within my own neighborhood. And that's where it all started. And we went all over Pasco County, from Brooksville, to Perrine Ranch, you name it. We went on so many different cases. This thing is actually more common than people know.
That is really amazing. How many years ago is that?
Oh, good Lord. Probably 1992, I want to say, 1991.
Wow. So you've had the paranormal for 30 years and the cryptozoology for about 15, is that right?
Yes.
That's incredible. What cases have you worked on?
We've worked on quite a few. In fact, what's really funny, Brenda? You see stuff on television. You see, Bigfoot hunters on TV, and they got a lot of information, and they tell you the latest of what they've got and what they know. But there's a lot of things you don't know and you don't get to hear. There are a lot of people out there that study this creature not for the same reason. Personally, I don't want to see Bigfoot get caught. I don't want to see him be harassed. This is not an aggressive creature. My favorite case that I'd really like to talk about, because it's very unknown, and it's probably the only time you'll ever hear about it, was in Hudson, Florida. in Hudson, Florida, there's a lot of trailer parks that are right on the wood line, okay? There's a lot of poor people that live out there. And they live out there in the sticks, and nobody really, pays attention. There was a little girl, and she was riding her bicycle down a dirt road on her way home. It was probably about, 4 in the afternoon. A man came by in a truck, and he hit this little girl. And she fell down, and, he picked her up, he put her on the side of the road, he threw her bike on the side, he got in the truck, and he left.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, the little girl claims, but first let me tell you what happened. Her mother came out later on, she was looking for her, and she heard somebody knocking. She heard something banging on the porch, and it caught her attention, and she said, oh, she's back, what is she up to, She went out there, and there was nobody there, but the little girl was laying on the porch, and her bicycle wasn't there. So the mom saw the little girl, and she was all messed up, and she picked her up. They took her to the hospital. The girl was unconscious. And so when the little girl comes to the hospital, she says to her, what happened? She told her about the truck. She told her about the man. And then she told her a fantastic story. She said, this big, hairy man came out of the woods. He picked me up, and he carried me home. Now, this happened just 2 blocks from about where she lived. And he set me down on the porch.
Wow.
Banged on the there was like a wooden floor on the porch. He banged on the floor and ran away. And the mother's like, really? Right. They didn't believe this at first, but, a lot of people in this neighborhood had seen this creature before. They'd seen it. Many people had seen it. And they went back to the scene, and they found the bicycle all mangled, and they saw the tracks, and they believed her.
That is amazing.
Thinks, everybody's afraid of the Bigfoot. It's kind of like one of the old movies where the monster becomes the hero. That just goes to show you many things. Okay, this thing knew this little girl was in trouble, and he knew where she lived. Now, that really boggles the mind. This shows this creature lives around there. He observes, and he knows who belongs where. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the Bigfoot is intelligent.
The Bigfoot can smell gun oil from a distance of about a half a mile. If a person goes in the woods, a hunter, and they have guns, he knows about it. He's not going to come over there and, get himself shot. The Bigfoot's been shot in Florida, in Pasco County, on 3 occasions, and walked away.
Wow. So they're intelligent. They've got enhanced senses. Are there other traits belonging to Bigfoot?
Oh, yeah. Did you hear anything about the Bud Chambers case back in the 60s?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. Bud Chambers, he lived in Bailey's Bluff in Pasco, which is right by the Anclote River. And the Bigfoot was very active by the Anclote River for years, decades and decades. Well, he had orange groves, and I guess he really liked the oranges, so he used to come in there all the time. Well, he had a few encounters with this thing, and he had an ailing mother who was a very old lady and very terrified. And he didn't want this thing coming around because it was really upsetting her. She had seen it, she was sickly. So a few times went by, and finally he got a clear shot, and he shot at this thing. And he claims that he hit it dead in the chest, and that it basically just looked down at its chest, looked at him, and walked away. Now, it's really funny. A lot of studies, some people are of the mind that the Bigfoot has a different structure than we do. Some people think of the Bigfoot as an early man, like Gigantopithecus. But there was an ape that had what they call a bony chest plate, where, how our chest, we have the sternum and then we have the ribs. Mm-hmm. Okay, this particular creature, this is a real creature. It's archaeological, discovery. He had almost like a solid plate across the sternum that was much wider than our sternum, and it was thick. I mean, that bony plate was over a half an inch thick, very, very hard. Mm-hmm. And it is some people's theory that the Bigfoot may have that bony chest plate, and that's maybe what saves him from getting, killed with a bullet to the chest.
Well, that would make some sense, because I've always kind of wondered.
Shot on more than one occasion. There was another
man
who was the caretaker for a ranch in Holiday who shot this thing also. He shot this thing twice.
Wow.
And it walked away.
So, and actually that would be an interesting evolutionary tactic, because, I've always wondered about, if you think about it, all of our really important organs are in our torso and our chest. That's why we have the ribs, but we still have all these spaces. I watch CSI and all the bullets and the, knives go right through them. So it would make sense for the Bigfoot to actually to have that evolution, and maybe that would be why it survived as long as it has.
Maybe that's why he's still around.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's why we can't kill one.
I know that in Florida there's something called the skunk ape, and is that is a Bigfoot, is that correct?
Yes, I have one of my friends, he's passed away now. He was with me, the same friend who was with me the night that we saw the creature at a very close range. He was from the Everglades. He lived in Ochapee, and he grew up there. And his father was a fisherman, and, well, he was an alligator poacher. Well, he told me many stories that happened. In fact, that's what brought his alligator poaching career to an end, is because he ran into a skunk ape, and he was young, and it scared the life out of him. So anyway, but from what I understand, from what he told me, and from the creature that we saw, the skunk ape in the Everglades is not the same as the one we have up north here. He's shorter. He's more stooped over. He looks more ape-like. That's the only way I could put it to you. He looks more ape-like.
That's interesting. So we might actually have multiple species here?
Oh, yeah, there's multiple. I believe there's multiple species of the Bigfoot all over the country. They come in all colors. They come in all... what's really interesting was there was an incident that took place in Bailey's Bluff. And this same creature, several people had reported incidents with the same creature, and they claimed it was silver. Now, Mike Forte, who studied this all his life, he told me, he said also it had blue eyes, which is very strange. Okay? Mm-hmm. Very strange. His take on it was that it was not really a silver Bigfoot with blue eyes. It was an old Bigfoot with cataracts.
Silverback. Oh, that's interesting. So...
Yeah. And how people get, we get older, we get senile, we act crazy?
Mm-hmm.
He believes that they do too. And that's why this creature was actually coming out into society and messing with people, because he wasn't in his right mind. He was old and senile. Kind of believe that. I think that's very possible. Because if they are as closely related to us as we believe they are, I mean, that would be perfectly applicable.
That is really amazing. So these are kind of perhaps a cousin to humanity then?
I really believe they are.
Wow.
I don't see this creature as an ape in any way, shape, or form. They're too intelligent. They show real cognizance in situations. I just don't see that. And they're very smart. Look, they've been outsmarting us for how long?
Yeah, that's true.
Us for how long?
So are they the missing link, do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think they're the missing link at all. I think they're a totally different creature. Mm-hmm. It's really funny, you hear so many people and they say, wow, the skeptics, they say, well, the only people that seem to see Bigfoot are camping teenagers and Native Americans. And, I think about that, too. And I'm Native American. They have a lot of, folklore about the Bigfoot, and Native Americans totally believe in the Bigfoot. They don't consider it to be a crypto. They consider it to be another, one of God's creatures, like their brother. And what's funny is the Native Americans have been interacting and living side by side with this creature for centuries. And, you talk about ancestral memory. We all have things we pass on to our children. We tell them, don't talk to strangers. Don't get in a stranger's car. If you see with a man with a gun, get out of there. And, we tell them all these things. Mm-hmm. And I believe that other creatures, they educate their children, too. And I think things are passed down, from generation to generation. And I think the reason the Native Americans see the Bigfoot so often is, number one, they still live in his environment. They still live out in the natural world. Number two, the Bigfoot's been dealing with Native Americans for years. I think he knows their scent. I think he knows there's no threat, no danger.
That is wonderful. That very well could be.
Teenagers that are out camping, they're really not a threat either. They usually don't have guns. Their pheromones probably smell like a kid, and the Bigfoot says, well, those are just kids.
Oh, wow. Well, let's pick up with this topic. We have to go to a commercial break, but let's pick up with this when we get back.
Now, time for something really scary. A word from our sponsors. Paranormal pets will reappear before you can say Bigfoot. Don't run away.
Greetings, human. What planet am I on?
Welcome to Pet Planet. Here's a copy of Pet Planet Magazine, Florida's most informative and fun pet resource magazine. It features heartwarming stories and informative articles from local and national pet experts.
Excellent.
Pet Planet Magazine offers Operation Planet Rescue, helping rescued pets find new homes. And it's available at 500 locations in South and Central Florida and 24/7 on the internet at petplanetmagazine.com. If you're out and about with your pet, you may be featured in paparazzi, candid pictures of you and your pet. For up-to-date pet-friendly events, activities, and pet-related services and products, Pet Planet Magazine is your final destination.
I shall take this magazine home with me.
Back to your home planet?
No, No, to my condo in Boca.
Pet Planet Magazine. Check them out at www.petplanetmagazine.com or 352-394-8578. It's out of this world.
Will your dog have a bone to pick with you tomorrow? Is your cat planning a hissy fit? Follow the Dog Star to Pet Life Radio for Lucky Stars, our weekly pet horoscopes. Whether your retriever's a believer or your Pekingese disagrees, this is the place to find out what the stars hold for your favorite furry friend. So pull up a crystal ball every week with your host, international pet astrologer, and Earth, Fire, Water, and Air Dale, Lucky. Only on PetLifeRadio.com. Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Did you hear that? Our commercials have mysteriously disappeared. Paranormal Pets is back with our haunted host, our ghost host.
And we're back. And you were saying that Big Feet or Bigfoot, is Big Feet an appropriate plural? I'm not quite sure what the plural is. Bigfoot doesn't sound right. But so that because they interact with nature and that they have these enhanced senses, that they interact with people in a different way, including Native Americans that have a different understanding because, of course, they are very connected to nature. The animistic societies, actually, and I was thinking that if you look at where Bigfoot is reported, there we go, essentially there is a strong connectedness to the animistic societies out there where nature has a spirit or a soul. So these are individuals who are very heavily observant of nature as a divine force. So, of course, they're going to see this.
You're talking about the name for Bigfoot? There's a man, I can't remember his name right now, but he wrote a book. It's a very good book. It's called Mysterious Beings. And I got the biggest charge out of it because he refers to the Bigfoot as the abominable swamp slob.
Okay.
And that made me laugh because the Bigfoot in Florida lives in the swamp a lot of the time. And the way they travel around without leaving lots of prints and get through residential areas without being seen is they usually wade through the rivers. We've learned this in our investigations. There was a river, a very small river that runs near the Anclote River. And it runs through a large expanse of property that goes about maybe 25 miles. And what the Bigfoot would do, and we knew this from the tracks, he would go to a cattle, they had like a cattle path across the river, and he would go down into the river, which at that time was only maybe 4 feet deep, 5 feet, and he would wade through the river, and that's how he would get from one location to the other. Now, this was a wonderful setup because he's not leaving tracks anywhere. He left them, though. He left them as he was going in. But after that, you could see the tracks under the water and the way they headed, because this is not a real fast-moving water. It's kind of still. And we figured out, that's how he's getting around. That's how they're traveling without being seen.
That's fantastic. So intelligent, hypersensitive, and possibly different evolution.
Yeah, I think that's why they smell so bad, too. You ever smell a wet dog, boy?
I tell you.
When you're a big hairy guy wading through the river all the time, you're not going to smell so good either.
Oh, that's true. And, in Florida, I don't know that they have, I know in primal tribal cultures, there's usually some sort of soap root or something like that. And I don't know what we have here. We have swamp water, which you're right, does not smell pleasant. That is amazing. Now,
another interesting thing that ties in with that, back in the late 60s, early 70s, there was another case. There used to be a hangout where teenagers used to go in Bailey's Bluff. They used to call it the Moon. Now there's a real fishing pier there, and it's a park now. But back then it wasn't. And it was a lover's lane is what it was. There was a teenage couple. They were in a car, and they claimed that this giant ape-like thing came out. And they claimed that it observed them. It went in front of their car, and they said that it had hair that at times was glowing green in places. Now, this was the most ridiculous story that I've ever heard because the Bigfoot doesn't glow.
Right.
It's not green. But guess what? During one of our investigations, Mike Forte and I went out to this pond. And in Florida, there is an algae that glows in the dark. Okay? And it's in this pond, and this pond is not even a quarter of a mile from where this thing showed up to those kids. Now, we did some experimenting of our own, And it was summertime, and he waded into the pond. He had pants on. And he came out, and sure enough, the algae was sticking to his pants, and it was glowing.
That is amazing. So we can actually have glow-in-the-dark Bigfoot in Florida.
Yeah, but it's a perfectly natural thing.
Absolutely.
It is a natural phenomenon. But when you think about it, here's a creature who we know wades through the water and wades through the ponds, and here's a thing that has something glowing green on his fur.
That's right.
There is logical explanation.
And it does explain the smell, because algae, when it dries out, really does kind of reek. Really? Now, are there any cases that you're currently working on?
Yes, there is. I'm not going to say the location of it because we don't want a bunch of rednecks with guns running around.
Understandable.
You know, but there was a couple of incidents. There were a few sightings in a residential area. Now, this residential area has woods all around it. Okay? It's kind of in the middle of Pasco County. That's all I'm going to say. And one man, he went out at 4:30 in the morning. He's a very big man. And he thought his neighbor was playing a joke on him because something was tapping on the window. Now, there's a tree outside the window. Could have been a tree branch. So he wants to investigate. But he's convinced it's the neighbor because they play jokes on each other. And he's a diabetic. So he's up at 4:30 in the morning getting some orange juice because his sugar was not right. So he says, I'm going to catch him. Because he kept telling him, cut it out. And so he goes outside. And he hears something in the bushes. Now, there's a lot of kudzu or that wild grapevine in that area. It covers everything. And it gets in these big mounds. So he sees something under the vines, and he thinks it's the neighbor hiding. He figures, he's knocking on the window. Now he ducked down under the vines. So I'll fix him. So he goes over, and there's like a 4-foot fence. And he reaches over the fence because the vines are, he's reaching over into the woods now and into the easement of the woods. And he starts pulling the vines away because he wants to, see him and say, what are you doing? As he does this, he said something grabbed his arm with 2 hands, one on the forearm, one on the bicep. He said whatever it was so strong it almost pulled him over the fence. He weighs 250 pounds, okay? Wow. And he kept fighting to get away. He said he did twist, and he finally did break away from this thing. And he had some serious injuries. I went out, I took pictures of the photographs. He called me because I know a friend of his also. And he said, I know exactly who to call. And I took pictures of the injuries, and you could see bruises, like finger-shaped bruises on this man, too. And the injuries were where the nails had dug into his skin.
So he actually had a direct encounter.
Oh, yes. And he told me, he said, whatever that was the strongest thing I've ever encountered. He says, and those hands were huge, and they felt rough like sandpaper.
Wow.
So after that, in the same exact area, another woman had come home at 2 in the morning and saw something in her yard. First, she thought it was a dog because it was down on all fours. Mm-hmm. She has an ornamental pond with very large tilapia fish and koi fish, and it was right by the pond. So she didn't want to walk in because she was afraid. She thought it was a dog or some kind of wild creature, so she started flashing her headlights for to chase it away. Mm-hmm. Well, it did. It loped off, and she said loped in a strange way. She got out of the car finally. She went to the gate. When she went in the yard, something caught her attention. She looked to her right and about 40 feet away, next to a hibiscus tree, she saw what she claims was a man-sized character over 6 foot tall with reddish-brown, shaggy hair and arms that hung past his knees, and that he just stood there and stared at her. She said his eyes were glowing red in the dark, just like an animal's would when they catch the light.
Okay.
She stood there for a minute, and then she panicked, and she ran in the house.
Wow, she did pretty well. I think I would have panicked right away.
Oh, yeah. Well, she pretty much did. She was, totally flipped out. And, of course, she got to talking to someone else, talked to the other neighbor, talked to this man, and so she called me, too. So we're working that case right now. There was also something seen in the road over there, too. Not quite a bear, one of those deals,
Right. Well, we're down to just a couple of minutes, so what I'd like to do is just see if you have a little bit of advice, maybe a minute's worth, for people who are interested in learning more about cryptozoology, and then I'd like to talk about how people can get in contact with you. So what advice do you have for people who are interested in learning more about this subject?
My advice is watch the media, watch the people who are out there in the field, keep up on current discoveries. Don't pay attention to the hype and the fakers like that man who is, the modern-day P.T. Barnum who had the fake Bigfoot body not too long ago. And, stay out of the woods. Don't go out looking for Bigfoot. You go looking for trouble, you can find it. He's not bothering us. I think we need to leave him alone.
So let Bigfoot find you, in other words. If it's meant to be, you wait for contact cases. You don't go out and...
Exactly. We're encroaching on his habitat with development more and more every day. He's got nowhere left to go. You know, and it really breaks my heart. I can't stand it.
Wow.
You know, it's very, very sad.
And if people have cases or if they have questions, how can they contact you? I know that you have a website for Pinellas Pasco Paranormal, which is www.pinellasPascoParanormal.com, and we'll have that up on the Pet Life Paranormal Pets site. Yeah. How else would you recommend folks to contact you?
Well, there's a contact number right on that website.
Okay.
I also have I can be found on the MySpace. Mm-hmm. And I'm just on quite a few paranormal directories all over the net.
Well, with 30 years experience plus the cryptozoology, I can imagine that you are. I mean, you are just an absolutely delightful guest, and I am just so thankful that you were willing to do the show and that you have this much knowledge and information to impart to our listeners. I just thank you very, very much for being on with me today, and I look forward to our next segment on ghost pets, which we'll be doing shortly. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in our last minute or so?
Well, you know what? If I could, I always say I love the Bigfoot. I want the Bigfoot to be left alone. I've made that clear. I would love to start a campaign to leave the Bigfoot alone. And I've had this funny notion in my head for a long time. You remember that song? There was a song put out called "More Human Than You Men."
Right.
That's the main message. The Bigfoot is more human than you men. He's not out there killing people. He's not out there doing the things that, some of the members of our rancid humanity do.
Well, sometimes I have to say I think, pets and animals are sometimes more human than we give them credit for. Yes, and the Bigfoot just sounds like another example of that. And absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on today. And again, this is Brandy Stark for Paranormal Pets at PetLifeRadio.com. If you would like to find out more information about me or my group, the Spirits of St. Petersburg, please see www.spiritsofstpetersburg.com. And Laurie, your website again is www.PinellasPascoParanormal.com. And they can also find you on MySpace or just try and search for your name, Laurie Champion, correct?
Yeah, well, if you go into the browser and you put Pinellas Pasco Paranormal, it'll come right up.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful morning.
Pet Life Radio presents Paranormal Pets, where you can always expect the unexpected. Each week we'll discuss all aspects of weird or spiritual animal encounters, ghosts, totems, psychic animals, animal souls, animal angels, and animals in religion, with a little cryptozoology thrown in. Step into the supernatural world of pets every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.